You're listening to Season 2 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Good. Through Womenpreneur Asia, I hope to bring you stories of inspiring yet down-to-earth women in business across Malaysia and Asia. This episode is sponsored by Reebok Studio. In this episode, I spoke to Jaklin Juanis, who is the founder of Professional Advancements Resources based in Malaysia. Jaklin was born and bred in rural Sabah in East Malaysia. Her village didn't have electricity, and as a child, she studied by candlelight. In this interview, she spoke about how she kept on moving and having the momentum to get out of her challenging situation and being smart about the resources she had around her. She has certainly done well for herself. Since 2008, as a corporate trainer, Jaklin has trained more than 40 organizations, 35,000 participants, and logged in 4,200 hours of corporate training and 800 hours of one-on-one coaching and mentoring. Not bad for someone who admitted that as a young graduate, she had this intense fear of public speaking. Jaklin was honest and open about her business, delving into the story of the expensive mistake she made when she first started her business, which included leasing her office and hiring employees from day one. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Welcome to the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, Jaklin.
Thank you so much for having me, Krista. Really a privilege to be here today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, Jaklin, let us begin from the very beginning. How did your entrepreneurial journey begin?
Right. Well, probably to answer this question, I can probably share my upbringing. I was born in Kota Belud, Sabah. It's a place really at the rural part of Sabah. If anyone knows about Kota Belud, apparently there's the place where you can the most number of women entrepreneurs. The background is, of course, agriculture. The socio-economic revolves around agriculture, and how we operate. We operate there is like we have our own produce and then we sell it at here you call it pasar malam lah, but over there we call it tamu. So back then, that was like almost like a weekly kind of thing for me. I will follow my grandmother to go to the farm, and then during the weekend, which was usually on Sunday, we will go to the tamu and sell our produce, right? So that pretty much, I think, shaped my way of thinking when it comes to earning, right? And also, of course, I have to work for I have to do something to get something, and in this sense is that I have to work to get money, right? I wanted to say I have to work for money, but that's not really it. It's really around I have to do something to earn money. So, okay, now that pretty much again shaped the way I think about earnings, right? And as time goes by, and then I had the opportunity to work in corporate, and it was a really good opportunity for me because I was in learning and development, right? I was in a multinational company, and I work in two multinational companies, and both are in learning and development. And when you are in learning and development, you pretty much exposed to a lot of this personal growth and professional development. Yeah. And that again shaped up my thinking when it comes to what will I be doing next, right? And also shaped my thinking around my own potential. A lot of the exposure that I get from my working experience, there's this constant messages around I can do more. I have this unlimited or rather limitless potentials in life that I should be really look at it and into planning what's the way forward for me. So because of that, so I was into that state where I cannot be like this forever, like this as in working in corporate. And at that point of time, I was pretty much sort of like governed by an entity, which is the organization, right? Deep in me, it was really about I want to do more about my life. And that's where, well, I can say that was the starting point. The spark of being an entrepreneur came. So, and I sort of like plan out my exit, right? And I plan out in a sense that I was thinking, okay, if I want to be an entrepreneur, or back then I was more, I called it, I want to work for myself, right? So if I want to work for myself, what is it I'm going to do? And I'm also thankful for the organization that I was in, because I was also exposed with coaching, mentoring, and they sent us for training, train the trainer. And that again gave me that some sort of like a tools for me to really identify what is it I want to do if I want to work for myself, right? So then I discovered it's really around, I have to discover my passion. And how am I going to discover that? Then I was like self-coach myself, right? And
so you actually coach yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, in coaching, we learn questions, right? We learn set of questions. So I sort of like, I coach myself, or rather probably it's not coaching, but it's more of a self-monologue. You ask question and you answer, right? And then I discovered that since I was really, really young, I like to, show or rather express myself through appearance, right? And at the same time, I think I was pretty much influential among my friends because I like to talk, right? When I was really little, right? So, and then I found the connection because in learning and development, I was an in-house trainer as well. So I said, yeah, this is it. This is the part that I'm going to bring in the next 5 years when I'm working for my own. So I actually planned it out. So that's how I started being now I am an entrepreneur, consultant basically. And also I do corporate training and coaching and mentoring. And at the same time, basically revolve around learning and development, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's what I do now.
So, okay. So it was very interesting to hear that you grew up in Sabah, but where are you now physically?
Oh, right. Physically, I'm based in Petaling Jaya. Yeah. In fact, my business based there as well. But I said there because I'm not there now. I'm actually at some place. I'm in KL now, so I have two places. But most of the time, I would say 99.9% of my time, I'm in PJ. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
So how does a Sabahan get to relocate to PJKL? Is it because of work? Was it because of your corporate work?
Right. Okay. Definitely. Well, I was accepted in UKM. That was like 20 years ago. Now you know my age. Yeah, or more than 20 years ago. And that was a starting point. How I got here. In fact, that was my first time flying. Yeah. And that's how
it must have been expensive then, right? It must have been.
Very expensive. Goodness, it's like I don't know, probably like 3 times or 4 times and the discounted fare for Air Asia. We didn't have Air Asia back then, right? And even student price is like you get the 50%. It's still more than the Air Asia flight. Yeah. Well, that's how I got here. And long story short, now time flies. Now it's like almost 24 years been here now. Yeah.
So you came here to study here as in Semenanjung, Malaysia, Peninsula,
Yes.
Malaysia, to study, and graduated. And you started working here also. That's why you never really left, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was really conscious about not going back. Unlike most of my friends, the moment during our graduation, everyone was like planning to go back. But I was very clear about not going back because I find that, well, back then, I don't know where did I get that thinking. Back then, I was really into, I want to explore more, because I told myself that if I go back, I'll just go back and it's the same thing. So it's time for me to explore. So I applied a job in University Kebangsaan Malaysia. Well, it's not directly really like 100% there, but it's a collaboration between the university and another agency. So I got a job as an instructional designer, which, like really back then I didn't know what was it about, but that also sort of build my foundation in learning and development. Yeah. And that's how I got into
Was that intentional? Was that something like, when I apply for a job, I want a job in this field or this industry?
No. It was just really, it was really just, I want to get a job, right? In fact, I actually got the job before my graduation. So I was earning the salary of a SPM level because I was still considered as not a graduate yet. So I started working even before my graduation. So I owe that person who accepted me in that job because that gave me exposure. And I was in that position for 7 years. And then, and then I move on into another part of learning and development, really in front, talking in front as a trainer. And then, do
you enjoy being, talking in front? I'm sure you do, right? Since,
I have a story for that.
Okay, that's good.
Story about that.
Okay.
When I got accepted as an instructional designer back then, well, really, really junior, like entry level back then, right? I didn't know what it was, right? I was just following seniors, we had template and we just use it. And as I was moving along my career, I discovered that skill, I can actually do a lot more with that skills, right? And I discovered that I can do training. I can use that skill to develop my own training and deliver it myself. Now, the problem back then was I was so afraid of public speaking. It's something that I remember when I was in university, when we had to present our papers, like I would not sleep the whole night because I was memorizing scripts, right? But so my biggest fear, I think I read that back then that is number one fear in the world, but that didn't really help me in terms of overcoming this fear of mine. So I was really afraid, but really, really afraid. And then when I discovered that the skill of instructional design, I can actually use it to design my training and I can deliver training. So I told myself, I'm so afraid of public speaking. Until when? There's this point where you feel the fear becomes it's so painful, it's pain. It's no longer just, fear, but probably it's the person in me that I need to get out from this uncomfortable situation, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to jump right in the middle of my fear. I'm going to apply a job as a trainer. And guess what? This company that applied is not a local company. Well, I can tell you it was Shell Retail Academy. So going into Shell is not that easy, right? So I told myself, how can I get into this job? Because apparently there's also some assessment, like a few layers, right? I got the first layer. First layer was interview, just like normal interview. And then the second layer, it was about you really have to show how you do your training. So it was an impromptu. And remember, my fear back then was I was so afraid of public speaking. And I said, I got into the second layer. I said, oh, okay, what can I do? I told myself, I have to do something about this fear of mine. So I said, okay, I'll be coming on the second interview. That was like 50% of me saying that. 50% is like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do, right? And I did a lot of preparation, definitely. I studied about the industry. I read and some points, talking points. And then although, that day when during the second layer of interview, we were given, like a few of the candidates, we were given topics, right? And it was like a lucky draw kind of thing, draw a lot kind of thing that you have to draw your topic. So I was like, yeah, I had my topic and we were given like a few minutes to prepare, and my turn to be in front of the bosses, like a few bosses. And out of a few candidates, if I'm not mistaken, it was 8 candidates, I got the job. And
wow, that's so good.
Yeah, I got a job, and
which means that you impressed them with your public speaking skill.
after I got the job, after some time, I asked my boss, because I kept on wondering what was it in me that they accepted me, right? Okay, it was basically a combination of they see, well, basically because the first interview, it was really about me. And there's this question asked, what are you looking forward for in this job? Right? So I told them, I said, this job is really challenging for me, but I'm willing to challenge myself. And that's one point. And then there's another part during the second layer. The person who interviewed me, he said that he can see that I was really challenging myself. Because in the first interview, I told them really about my story. I told them about my fear of public speaking. And I'm determined to overcome this by challenging myself and to show that I will be able to produce results. And that's exactly why I got accepted. And I think being honest and being the way you see yourself, that you're willing to be vulnerable. At the same time, you have this forward thinking around the difficulties or the limitation that you have at this point of time is really important. It's not about the story where you are now when it comes to your limitation, but where are you heading to in terms of, in my case, it was overcoming my limitation. So that's what I got in that, points of my life.
So how has it been since then? I mean, okay, so you challenge yourself. You challenge yourself, right? I mean, you changed jobs because of like a personal fear, and you wanted to get right into the fear itself, which is the public speaking. And then you applied to Shell and you got in because of the fact that you opened up that you wanted to challenge yourself, right? And they took you on your word and they said, great, come in and do the stuff that you're scared of. So what happened after that?
Right. Interesting, because a few weeks after that, my boss gave me a task to run a module. In this organization, you have to, in the very beginning, it's more about execution. We have this centralized, or we call it Global Retail Academy, right? And, all the countries in the world, then we will then execute the module. So we already have pretty much ready modules. So my boss gave me this task to execute that particular modules. It was a 2 days program that I had to stand in front and talk about it, right? And that was the moment of truth. Really, like, I kept on telling myself, okay, I've been talking so much about challenging my fear, and this is the time that I have to prove not to anyone else, but to myself. And the first day of standing in front, I can literally feel my body was shaking, trembling, and not to mention sweat, drenched with sweat.
How many people were in the audience?
Okay, one thing why it was challenging for me as well, because also because the audience are those people who owns the Shell station, and these people are very experienced people. They have, they've been in corporate, in their previous designation, probably like the higher management of in their organization, right? And these people are really experienced people, so that's also add on the fear of, oh my God, I'm so young still compared to them, those kind of.
And you're talking to older people.
Yeah, I'm talking to older people. But it didn't, well, I can tell that it didn't go really that well, because after that I got this feedback around, this kid, orang macam this kid boleh jadi trainer, those kind of stuff, right? It's exactly like that. Orang macam ni pun boleh jadi trainer ke? Something like that. I got exactly that kind of remark, right? And then what happened was, because of that remark, it gives me this some form of like strength to show that I want to prove to this person that I can be better. And you know what? After 20 years, or probably 15 years, until now, we are still friends.
Oh, wow. So you're still friends with this person?
Yeah, and this person, I got to know that back then, he was a trainer. Yeah, he was a trainer. So that's why he can say that. And therefore, because of that, probably that's why he was quite supportive when it comes to the, we should have a certain level of credibility when it comes to training, right? Yeah. So, and then, we are still friends, and we became friends. We he helped me in a way. It's been like casually supporting me in terms of my improvement. So my point here is that, the point where I decided to change my thoughts, the way I see myself, followed by action, that really put me where I am today. Yeah. Do I have the fear still? Yes, I do. When I talk in front, of course, everyone, I think almost everyone has that, but it's something that then I have the remedy for it because of that constant practice of how to change my thinking at that very point of time, when the thinking goes into, putting yourself low or giving you that, I would say, victim mindset, all that kind of, limitation that you put on yourself, then I pretty much will be then be conscious enough about it and, consciously change my thinking that I can actually think of the other side of it, which is more of bringing me forward. So I think, that's really been helping me.
What an interesting story to start off our session and our episode.
Probably I can share. Yeah, so, Krista, maybe this also.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because you mentioned about you asked about my upbringing, right? I mean, where I was born, how this kind of the situation I am in, where was the origins?
Yeah, yes,
right. That's the one you want to hear, right? Back in, I would like to tell this because not everyone. It's something that I think not many people know about the situation, particularly in rural Sabah, right? I grew up in a community, or rather in an environment where a lot of, if I can say, limitation back then. We didn't have electricity. Yeah, I studied using candles, but probably because of that, and okay, I started using candles, and I remember back then, I had this, or maybe inclination rather. I had this inclination of, okay, I am in this situation. How can I make use of the situation so that this, whatever situation it is now, it will add value to myself or the people surrounding me, right? So back then I was really young, like, yeah, well, in secondary school, right? And in front of me, I was studying. In front of me, there are candles. So I was like thinking, how can I make use, like, okay, but okay, just the background of this story. Not every kampong or every village without electricity. Some village, particularly those who are nearer to the town, they already have electricity, right? And that's why I can see the vast difference between myself and also my friends that, they have electricity. And then, okay, coming back to the story, when I was studying, and then I have my candles surrounding me, like 2-3 candles. How can I make use of this situation, right? So that, it will give me value. So what I did, I actually, all the candles that I have, I made marks. Like, the candles, and you put marks. And every sort of like lines, I put lines. And in each line, I will then equate that with some form of achievement. Meaning, okay, if I reach this line, I must reach this page on the book lah. Like I was like doing my homework or reading books, right? Yeah. And I also use that as I was racing against the light, the flame.
Yeah.
I told myself that before this flame reached this line, I must have finished this part, or I must have, remember, because I was like memorizing, back then that's how we learn, right? we memorize. So
you must have been reading really fast.
Well, I don't really remember how was it, but that was it. It was really around. My point of sharing this is, I'm so thankful of that experience living in that kind of situation, because if not because of that, I don't think I developed this kind of mindset of, regardless of whatever situation, there's always things, good things can be done out of it. And I noticed while talking to you, Krista, this is really like recalling and like seeing my own pattern. Like I never really had this opportunity to really like, do I have this pattern or not? But talking about it now, this makes me realize that I've been having this pattern, the way I do things. Yeah. In fact, when you mentioned about, I do have my own talk show as well. It was out of a situation where I started that during the MCO 1.0. The flow of thought was also almost the same. Okay, I can't go out from this house, and everyone also the same. How can I make use of this situation? So therefore, I utilize social media to do, add value to others and myself. Yeah.
So I can see that is an interesting pattern also, meaning that you would make the best out of the situation. It could not be the best situation, and I can't even imagine reading by candlelight. I don't know how you can do work in candlelight, because it is hard on the eyes, and it's probably harder if you have to do it for a long time. So I'm glad that brought up some interesting memories of your past.
Thank you so much.
Because I feel that sometimes we may not know it, but sometimes our past has a lot of bearing on our present and also our future.
Yes, that's really true. Yeah. And we only realize that when we talk about it or when we journal it, a lot of time, this is also part of the way I get people to see the plus point of them. It's really around, try to journal what have you done in life, then you can see that you have a lot of good things about you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got good resources available, but we just didn't realize they were resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has to be consciously, how do you say, there's some form of like purposeful activities around it so that you're able to draw it out from you.
Yeah. Okay. So now that you have talked about how you got started in the business that you are in, so let's switch gears and talk about in the early years of your business, how do you market yourself? And of course, when you're marketing yourself in the service business, you're also marketing your business, right? So what were some of the strategies that you use for yourself?
Right. As I mentioned just now, I planned my exit. I had my exit strategy when I was still working, right? In fact, I know that I need to build credibility, right? And credibility means track record. And you like it or not, in Malaysia, credibility also sometimes equivalent to how many certs you have.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
And so I know this thing. And when I was still working, especially taking certification, I even had unpaid leave to go overseas to get my certification, right? And I know that the first one that I said just now is the reputation or credibility through your track record. And I was already, while I was still working, I informed my boss that during the weekend, I might be getting job on my own personal accord, like, well, people say moonlighting, but I told my boss about it. And thankful enough, I'm so lucky to have a boss that really understanding, and he said, yes, you can go. So yeah, and when I was working still, I was already into that mode of looking for contacts and offering my services. In fact, back then, I wasn't really looking at the fee, but really about building as many track records as possible. I was earning. I had my 9-to-5 job, so I agreed on quite a number of, FOC kind of work for like 2-3 hours speaking engagement, for example. So yeah, and I continued doing that. And at the same time, I attended business networking. And then the time when I resigned, and I made a mistake, of course, a few mistakes that I did. But at the same time, how did I market myself? Before I resigned, I made sure that I have secured at least 6 months of work.
Work?
6 months
wow.
Of work, as in a project. Well, like one or two in a month, right?
Most people will say they secure 6 months of financial savings, right? Like they have money in the bank for 6 months or even 8 or even 12 months. But yours is a little bit unusual. You secured work for yourself. That's good.
Yeah, because I wanted to be having that constant work activities. On the money side, yes, I did that as well, but I made a mistake because the moment I resigned, I rented an office with a staff, which back then it was, it's the mistake that I did, like a lot of overhead with, but it's a lesson learned. Okay, but back to your question, I secured at least 6 months. And because I had the expertise on developmental work, so I also offered that. So developmental work is like kind of like a series of programs. And I think, and also, okay, I think the part that really helped me in the very beginning was my continuous activities around networking. Yeah, I went to networking groups, and then my networking has got two parts of it. One is the real, like the
Face to
formal
face.
one. You attend a meeting, and the other one is really around casual, just go coffee in a group, this kind of stuff, and calling friends who back then some of them, they were still in corporate, now they are out like me as well. My point is the constant movement. I didn't stop. I was the drill was really constantly moving, like physically moving. I remember back then I was moving as in meeting friends or mostly meeting friends, doing networking. And I must do something in a day. Like it has to be something that move you physically. Yeah. And I think that helped me when it comes to building more contacts. And
so yeah.
I was pretty much active in associating myself with group of people. Like other than just meeting over coffee, I do that as well. Like not necessarily about work, just keep in touch with friends. I do that a lot as well. But at the same time, I do have, I associate myself with people that has got some form of reputation. And of course, I was selective, but I was purposeful in doing that. Yeah. And
so you're very, very strategic. I love how your mind works.
I really don't know, because the word for me is I must keep on doing something, like moving and physically moving, and at the same time be visible. Now, the word be visible sometimes when you're in the very beginning, at least in my case, is that where if people catch that, a certain group of people, a certain type of people, if they know that you're actually more wanting to be into that visibility activities, there might be a part where people tend to fully utilize that and giving you that chance without a certain compensation, for example. But I didn't look at that way, because I remember back then when I was like doing that quite often, my family particularly, they will like give me this remark, why are you doing that for free? You are in this stage, why are you doing that for free? But back then I was really purposeful, as in I want a visibility. It's okay what they are doing now, but in the long run, I think I'm doing good for myself and for my business. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like really you were very intentional with your networking, which I think is also good, because I think a lot of people go into networking without realizing what they intend to achieve out of it. Of course, networking is great for many reasons, but I think people must also start thinking how they can be intentional about it. Intentional in a good way, I would say. I would say like you have to go in with a kind heart, an open heart, right? Not just going there to get something out of it. So just now you mentioned something interesting about mistakes, which I would like to also explore a little bit with you, because I find that we all make mistakes, right? So it's not something that only certain people do it and all that. But I like to talk a little bit about that, because since you brought it up, what were some of the mistakes that you look back and it's like, oh my God, such a silly thing I did. Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. I shouldn't have done this, Liz. I have a list. Okay. First thing was that, when you are a new entrepreneur, you envision a stage where you have a corporation. right? So you envision you have a corporation with, because I was pretty much exposed with a very systemized way of running an organization. I was working in Shell Retail Academy. It's pretty much like been in Malaysia for 100 years. And I had experience working in Lafarge, Malaysia Berhad, number one cement manufacturing company in the world. And pretty much everything is systemized. So having that training, when I decided to be an entrepreneur, I envisioned that, like everything needs to be in place. It has to be a system. And I did that. Well, not exactly as big as that, but at least at that point of time, I was thinking pretty much in terms of making it systemized. Like, for example, I have an office. Yeah, I did. First day of my resignation, the next day, I got my key, right? And yeah, of course, I have that 6 months job. But back then, it was really about, my focus was really envision that, like sticking to that vision of mine of having a corporation, quote unquote corporation, while I was just on my own and pretty new as an entrepreneur, no background of really like full pledge of entrepreneur, no, nothing, no experience at all. And then I hired a staff and one permanent and two part-timers. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Two part-timers.
You really envision a corporation.
Yes. And of course, back then it was not visible to me that I was doing it wrong. Because first thing, my mind was, do I have money to pay them? Yes, for now, yes. I had my saving. And then I had these people. And yeah, I did that. And okay, long story short, after 2 years, I find everything is now exhausted, right, resources wise, because out is more than in. Yeah, because in this business, you have that, particularly when you rely pretty much a lot in terms of, getting clients, right? And yeah, so if I were to go back to that very moment when I decided when I was planning out my first day of being an entrepreneur. No, the first day of being an entrepreneur, no office, no staff. I'll just be, myself and strategizing how can I utilize the resources that I have and, go all out on my own. And because I think in starting a business, I don't know, probably I'm quite traditional, but I realized that be as prudent as possible. Yeah. Because I don't know, probably I'm in that thinking around why prudent is because the strategy is so that you feel comfortable resources wise in the long run, right? I'm not saying that having staff, having office is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. If you can plan out how to sustain that, probably till, even expand that, it'll be good. But my mistake was I didn't have that planning. It was just about vision of having that. And I want to have these people and that's it. There was no planning of what if after 6 months, what is my plan? I didn't have any plan on that to keep that resources and to sustain this. Well, back then I call that as my comfortable situation, right? So I didn't have that planning. So unless you have that plan, then I think it will be good. So my mistake was I didn't have that. So after 6 months, or rather, I think not really 6 months. 6 months was still okay. Almost after 2 years, 1 year plus, and yeah, and also this is another mistake that I did. After 2 years, yes, I expanded into another business. So another branch of that business. So again, you see, I already have a commitment here and I add on another commitment. So a lot of resources sipping out. Some,
Was it in the same? Was it in the same like similar field? The new business?
if I were to relate that to the subject matter, there's all some relation to it. Yeah, but it's not exactly the same. But then I had to add on another manpower in there.
I see.
So it's another like accumulation of a lot of responsibilities until
And
the
and
and overhead, yes. And also not only that, I realized when I had that the other business of mine, then suddenly I realized the focus, right? People say about you need to focus, and back then my idea of focus is having this sort of like I really don't know what is that confidence that hey, I can do that. Yeah, I can do it. Although I have many, if I want to put myself in there, I can do that. But reality check came, and apparently, and too many of these,
businesses.
Business, and too many of these activities. I realized that I have to take care of myself as well. So I decided to let go of that. 1 year, after 1 year, I let go. And then I came to a point that I need to be focused, centered, grounded. And so that's how it is now.
Okay. So right now, what's the future looking like for you in terms of training, learning, development, coaching, mentoring? I know you do many things.
There's a tools. The subject matter will be always on the image and professional growth and development, and around the learning and development. Well, the way forward for me is that honestly, I think riding on my points of being centered, being grounded, what matters the most in the next few years is really about focusing on the items, on the things that I love the most, number one. Number two, it has to be able to contribute to others. So I just want to focus that, and then the focus will be on day-to-day basis. I used to be like reaching there. I want to reach here. I want to have that. I want to achieve that. I want to go for that, and never really about what's in it now. Where am I at this point of time? So the way forward is grounding myself or getting myself centered. What is it now that I do, and looking at it from the perspective of how I can use it to add value to others. Yeah. So I think that's the way forward. That's why I'm now very much active in the social enterprise. And because I find that can be the vehicle for me to add value to others, while at the same time earning profits and also taking care of our environment. So, I mean, that's my aspiration. The thinking is around that. So the way forward for me is really that adding value to others, and how the vehicle will be social enterprising. Yeah.
Okay. So now I want to get a little bit up close and personal with you. We're asking you some questions about things that you do and things that you love, right? So do you have any unusual habits? Or anything that is like weird or odd or quirky?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me decide which one.
Which one? Okay. So you have more than one.
Yeah, especially when it comes to food. Okay. Even my family, they are they feel I'm quite weird when it comes to food combination.
Okay, give me one.
Okay. Well, I can when you cook, I don't cook. I really don't know how to cook as in per how it's supposed to be, right? Okay, I give you one to make this clearer to everyone is that when we have spaghetti, right?
Yeah.
How do you have your spaghetti? You have your spaghetti and you have your sauce,
and
right?
meatballs.
And meatballs, or sometimes you put meat. Well, you put meat, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I look at it like I can actually make soup out of this. Like, and then I will,
Spaghetti soup.
yeah, I will put everything in a pot and put water and add on all sort of stuff like veggie. And then I will then have this sort of like a tomato soup with spaghetti. And that kind of weirdness I have. And I can have I have so many, like, I really don't know. I mean, like, for me, how I came out with that kind of inclination is I imagine the taste instead of, well, imagine and taste it. It started when, what if I do that? How I mean, I'm more curious about the end result. And oh my God, I have so many that I don't know which one that which example should I share here?
Oh,
like,
okay.
not like,
Is it food example?
yeah, food. Like I like something like you have your cocoa nibs. Like people eat, well, they will consume it like just like that, right? Or they put in breakfast. They will add on to their cakes or yogurt, right? I do that as well. But at the same time, I can put cocoa nibs in everything. Like I can even add on it to my rice or my salad.
That is very strange.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really don't know. I mean, like, I'm okay. So that's why when people ask me about food, when close friends, when it comes to food, they won't ask me because it will be always like, I think it's okay. It tastes okay. Unless it's really not okay, then I will say, no, don't go there. It's not okay. But food is for me like a lot of this experimentation, and I like it when the weirdest it is. I really don't know. But the weirdest it is, the better for me. Like, not the better, the more exciting I will be, trying. And another weird thing, I don't know whether it's weird about me, is that I think it's more about food.
So you're a food person, but you will make a lot of adventurous choices about how you combine your food. Can I say that? Your combination.
Yes. When it comes to, probably now you mentioned about being adventurous. Probably that's my inclination. I like to travel on my own. Because
you get to eat what you want.
Yeah, well, that's one. I'm pretty much not. Well, I want to enjoy surprises, right? Because when I realize that when I travel on my own, it's more exciting because I will meet a lot of new friends. I make friends with all these solo travelers, right? And a lot of new experiences. Some are, probably that will shape me, from that experience. So yeah, that's why I like traveling on my own. Or if I have a friend that has got the same inclination, I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And talking about going on, doing on my own and stuff. I have this weird habit of, in fact, not only when traveling, there are situations where I'll purposely switch off all my devices and do things on my own without, then people will be wondering, where was I? Why I was so quiet. It was just an inclination of mine that I want to do things on my own. Yeah.
I really thought I think among all my interviewees, your unusual habit is really unusual. I mean, other people would tell me very common things that are not, to me, okay, I mean, acceptable, but yours is really unusual. Well, food-wise at least, right?
You tell me this, I can't sort of explain or even describe my food because, it's just a moment where hey, what if I try that? What if I try, I add on this? Like all sorts of stuff. Probably I better not to tell you all because it will be disgusting to some people.
Okay, so now we have come to almost the end of our hour. You see, we had so much fun. We talked about so many things.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I really wanted to ask was that what's that one thing that you want our listeners to remember as a result of listening to our episode today, and what should they think about? Like, okay, after all you've said, about your mistakes, how you started, how you made good use of your resources, especially when you looked at what you were doing in the past and now, of course, and into the future. So what's the one key takeaway that you feel people should really learn, or maybe some insights from your life and your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. Thank you, Krista. Yeah. Come into reflecting on my journey in life, I realized that success is really about the state of now. I used to think that, this thinking around the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, that the success is always far. There's a distance. If you don't call it far, but there is a distance between now and your success. And apparently I realized that this distance is always there. It's constantly there. You achieve at a certain point where you think that that's a success, but there's also another distance appearing because there's another success that you like to achieve. And that really put me in a state of sometimes you feel exhausted. You feel, am I good enough? Why am I not, in this, why am I not achieving the state that, or the success that I want to be? But I realized that if I were to put my focus on the now, where am I in this particular time? Even talking to you, this is another success for me, because to be able to share this to the people that listening to your program is already a success, and that gives me that keeps me grounded. That keeps me this state of peacefulness. That then I can, sort of like formulate the next action, not the next action, the subsequent action. And I realized that having this thought, treasuring every second, every moment, really empowering. It empowers me, one after another. I have achieved one after another. And that equivalents a lot of, if you call that nows, the now, number of now that you've been really focusing on. So, yeah, so wherever you are now, there's always, you are always in a position, the best position to appreciate yourself.
Wow, yeah. That's a really powerful insight. I really like how you talked about success as being this thing that most women, even most men, would like to achieve. But sometimes we're so into looking at that goal that we forget the here, right? We forget that we're living every single day, and all our days accumulate and become that. But we just don't see it as it is. So that is also the reason why I feel that having women come on my podcast and sharing their stories is a great way for other people to learn from collective wisdom.
Right. Yeah.
Because if we don't hear people's stories, number one, we think we're all alone.
Yes.
Right. So if someone looks at Jaklin and say, hey, Jaklin, this wonderful trainer, teacher, she stands up there and talks about learning and development stuff. But from what you shared with me just now, you had a fear of public speaking, which of course right now people think, no, she couldn't have had that. Look at her now. But we all start from somewhere. And that somewhere may not be like you start off the most confident, but I guess it is a accumulated experiences, the journey, the people you meet along the way, and the kinds of things that we brave ourselves to do. I think in your case, I would say, I loved how you just put yourself in the eye of the storm. And even if you were so fearful, you decided, well, I'm just going to do it. I don't care, right? I die, but I might as well do it, right? So just go in there, jump in there, and be part of that. So I think we strength from that. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to add on, English wasn't my language before. I didn't know English at all. Yeah. But because of that practice, so now I can pretty much be understood by people, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known that. Talking to you.
To add on that, failure is we always look at failure as in the now. That's the dangerous part of it. Like failure means that we haven't achieved yet, right? That's considered as failure. So we always see ourselves as, I haven't achieved that yet, the future, the success, the distance. But the dangerous part of it is that the now we always equate that with failure. So that's the most,
Okay. So, final question. Where can people find you online, or where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Right. I'm pretty much really active on social media. I have Facebook, Jaklin Juanis, my name, and Instagram. But LinkedIn, yes, once in a while. Yeah. But my target audience are pretty much in Facebook, because I decided to do that because I'm focusing more into adding values those people that, if I can say, not that into that professional yet, because in LinkedIn there are more professionals over there, but in Facebook a lot of them are casual people. So that's my target audience. Yeah.
Do you also have your own show, right? I think you remember you said yes. You started.
Yeah, I started a live talk show. I don't record like this. I do a live on Facebook. It is called Point of Views. But at the same time, there's also some collaboration. Every Wednesday we have the Insight track, and every Sunday at 4 p.m. we have the Inspiration series or Inspiration track. For now, we are collaborating with Sabah Social Entrepreneurs Network. All these small enterprises in the rural Sabah, and they are socially conscious enterprises, or they are also pure social enterprises. So that's what I do now every week. And we have reached 72 episodes.
Wow, that is fantastic. I love how people are transforming themselves during the pandemic lockdown and looking forward with hope, because I think a lot of times it can be quite depressing to read the news of the statistics and the cases that we have daily. But I think if we can have more hope, we can have more optimism. And we can do much more together. So thank you so much. It's such a wonderful pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you. I'm like I mentioned to you earlier on, like I admire people that doing this kind of initiative, because we don't know who will be watching this, and they might be get inspired by this. And thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. I'll see you. I'll talk to you again. Okay, bye.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye, Krista.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. You can find all the links and show notes on our website, womenpreneurasia.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. If you're sharing this on your social media, please use the hashtag Womenpreneurasia. In next week's episode, I'll be speaking to Indian entrepreneur Radha Mohadurba, who said that if she had a choice, she would have started her business sooner instead of waiting until she was 41. Radha is the director of Kereses Consulting India Private Limited, a HR consulting business based in Bangalore, India. She recruits for engineering industries, but the initial phase was quite challenging as she didn't have any experience or any body of work in this field. With 7 languages under her belt, it is no wonder that Radha loves traveling the world. Well, at least during the pre-pandemic times. She lives by the motto, not All those who wonder are lost opens up about what it means to be a woman in business, especially in the recruitment industry in India, and how she tries to push for the women's agenda with employers when she helps them recruit. Not surprisingly, some factories don't even have bathrooms dedicated for women's use. I hope you will join me and Radha next week.